HOA in Oaked Estates. Michael's experience sheds light on the often complex and sometimes contentious relationship between homeowners and their governing bodies. As a resident of this community, he found himself at odds with the HOA over issues that many homeowners can relate to, such as property modifications and adherence to community guidelines. This situation not only affected Michael personally, but also sparked a broader conversation about the dynamics within communities and the rights of individuals regarding their own properties. The story is engaging and relatable, as it highlights the struggles many face when trying to balance personal desires with community regulations. It's essential to understand that while HOAs are established to maintain property values and community standards, they can sometimes overreach, leading to conflicts that leave homeowners feeling frustrated and powerless. Michael's journey through this conflict serves as a reminder of the importance of community dynamics and the need for open communication between residents and their associations. It raises critical questions about personal property rights and the extent to which an HOA can dictate how homeowners manage their own spaces. As we explore Michael's story, we invite you to reflect on your own experiences with community governance and the challenges that can arise when personal freedoms clash with collective rules. This video aims to not only inform but also engage viewers in a discussion about the balance between community standards and individual rights, encouraging a deeper understanding of the complexities involved in HOA relationships. Join us as we unpack this compelling narrative and consider what it means to live in a community governed by shared rules and expectations. Michael Chen was filled with excitement when he first set his sights on Oaked Estates, a pristine neighborhood that seemed to embody the ideal suburban lifestyle. The tree-lined streets, well-maintained lawns, and charming homes created an inviting atmosphere that made him envision a bright future in this community. The community guidelines, which emphasized aesthetic harmony and property upkeep, initially appealed to him, as they promised a safe and pleasant environment for families. Having recently received a promotion at work, Michael felt ready to take the next big step in his life by purchasing his first home. This milestone was not just a financial investment. It was a dream come true, a place where he could build memories and establish roots. As he browsed through listings, he stumbled upon a fixer-upper that caught his eye. While it needed some work, Michael saw immense potential in the property. The idea of transforming a house into his dream home excited him, and he envisioned the renovations that would breathe new life into the space. The prospect of personalizing each room and creating a sanctuary that reflected his style was exhilarating. He imagined hosting gatherings with friends and family, all while enjoying the benefits of living in a community that valued aesthetics and neighborly connections. However, little did he know that this initial excitement would soon be challenged by the very community guidelines that had drawn him in. The journey of turning his fixer-upper into a dream home would not only test his renovation skills, but also his understanding of the HOA's role in his new life. As Michael embarked on this adventure, he was eager to embrace the challenges ahead, unaware of the conflicts that would soon arise. Michael's first encounter with Diane, the HOA president, was both memorable and telling. As he stood on his newly acquired front porch, he noticed Diane approaching with a warm smile, presence exuding a mix of authority and friendliness. Dressed in a crisp, tailored outfit that reflected her commitment to the community, she carried a welcome basket filled with homemade treats and a neatly bound HOA rulebook. Diane's demeanor was poised and confident, embodying the role of a leader who took her responsibilities seriously. However, beneath her welcoming exterior, Michael sensed an underlying tension that would soon become apparent. As she handed him the basket, Diane's smile remained, but her eyes held a scrutinizing gaze, as if she were assessing him as a new member of the community. The welcome basket, a thoughtful gesture meant to make newcomers feel at home, also served as a subtle reminder of the HOA's presence and expectations. The accompanying rulebook, filled with guidelines and regulations, loomed large in Michael's mind, hinting at the complexities of life in Oaked Estates. While he appreciated the gesture, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a friendly introduction. It was an initiation into a world governed by strict rules. During their conversation, the tension became palpable. Michael attempted to express his excitement about his new home and the renovations he planned, but Diane's responses were measured and cautious. She emphasized the importance of adhering to the community guidelines, her tone suggesting that any deviation would not be taken lightly. This initial interaction left Michael feeling both welcomed and wary, setting the stage for the challenges he would face in navigating the delicate balance between his aspirations and the HOA's expectations. As Michael settled into his new home in Oaked Estates, he quickly found himself inundated with a series of violation notices from the HOA that left him both bewildered and frustrated. The first notice arrived shortly after he moved in, citing his front yard for having excessive holiday decorations. Michael had adorned his porch with a few tasteful lights and a modest wreath, but apparently they had deemed it too festive for their standards. This absurdity was just the beginning. He soon received additional notices for seemingly trivial matters, such as the color of his mailbox and the placement of his garden gnomes, which were deemed out of character for the neighborhood. Each notice felt like a personal affront, and Michael struggled to understand how his attempts to make his house feel like home could be met with such scrutiny. The HOA's rigid enforcement of rules began to overshadow the excitement he had felt upon moving in. Despite the mounting frustration, Michael was determined to resolve these issues amicably. He reached out to Diane, hoping to discuss the violations and express his perspective. In his communications, he emphasized his commitment to maintaining the community's aesthetic while also advocating for a more reasonable approach to enforcement. During their conversation, the tension became palpable. Michael attempted to express his excitement about his new home and the renovations he planned, but Diane's responses were measured and cautious. She emphasized the importance of adhering to the community guidelines, her tone suggesting that any deviation would not be taken lightly. This initial interaction left Michael feeling both welcomed and wary, setting the stage for the challenges he would face in navigating the delicate balance between his aspirations and the HOA's expectations. As Michael settled into his new home in Oak Estates, he quickly found himself inundated with a series of violation notices from the HOA that left him both bewildered and frustrated. The first notice arrived shortly after he moved in, citing his front yard for having excessive holiday decorations. Michael had adorned his porch with a few tasteful lights and a modest wreath, but apparently they had deemed it too festive for their standards. This absurdity was just the beginning. He soon received additional notices for seemingly trivial matters, such as the color of his mailbox and the placement of his garden gnomes, which were deemed out of character for the neighborhood. Each notice felt like a personal affront, and Michael struggled to understand how his attempts to make his house feel like home could be met with such scrutiny. The HOA's rigid enforcement of rules began to overshadow the excitement he had felt upon moving in. Despite the mounting frustration, Michael was determined to resolve these issues amicably. He reached out to Diane, hoping to discuss the violations and express his perspective. In his communications, he emphasized his commitment to maintaining the community's aesthetic while also advocating for a more reasonable approach to enforcement. However, his attempts at dialogue often felt one-sided. Diane's responses were curt and focused solely on the rules, leaving little room for compromise or understanding. Michael found himself caught in a cycle of compliance and resistance as he tried to navigate the absurdity of the violations while still adhering to the community's expectations. Each notice served as a reminder of the challenges he faced, pushing him to question the balance between personal expression and the stringent regulations imposed by the HOA. As he continued to engage with the association, Michael hoped for a resolution that would allow him to enjoy his home without the constant threat of penalties. As time went on, Michael began to notice a marked shift in Diane's demeanor towards him. What started as a seemingly cordial relationship quickly devolved into hostility, as Diane employed increasingly aggressive tactics to enforce the HOA's rules. Her approach became more confrontational, often showing up unannounced to inspect his property and scrutinize his renovations. Each visit felt like an invasion, and Michael found himself on edge, constantly worrying about what new violations she might cite. The impact on his renovations was significant. He felt paralyzed, unable to proceed with his plans for the home without fearing another notice or reprimand. Adding to the tension were the anonymous complaints that began to flood the HOA's inbox, seemingly orchestrated to undermine Michael's efforts. These complaints ranged from minor issues, like the color of his front door, to more personal attacks on his character, suggesting that he was not a good fit for the community. The intimidation tactics employed by Diane and her supporters left Michael feeling isolated and targeted, as if he were being watched at every turn. The once exciting prospect of transforming his fixer-upper into a dream home had turned into a nightmare, filled with anxiety and uncertainty. In response to the escalating hostility, Michael made the decision to install security cameras around his property. This move was not just about protecting his home. It was a way to reclaim a sense of control in a situation that felt increasingly oppressive. The cameras served as a deterrent, providing him with peace of mind and a record of any interactions that might occur. Michael hoped that by documenting the HOA's actions, he could defend himself against any further unjust accusations. As he navigated this challenging landscape, he remained determined to stand his ground and protect his rights as a homeowner, even in the face of Diane's growing hostility. The situation escalated dramatically when Michael received a cease and desist letter from the HOA regarding the security cameras he had installed around his property. The letter accused him of violating community guidelines, claiming that the cameras were an eyesore and disrupted the neighborhood's aesthetic. This move felt like a blatant intimidation tactic, designed to silence him and discourage any further attempts to protect his home. The HOA's aggressive stance left Michael feeling cornered, as if he were being punished for simply wanting to ensure his safety and security. Faced with this new challenge, Michael sought legal consultation to better understand his rights as a homeowner. During the meeting, his attorney explained the nuances of homeowners' rights, emphasizing that while HOAs have the authority to enforce community rules, they cannot infringe upon an individual's right to protect their property. Michael learned that many homeowners have successfully challenged similar HOA actions, and he felt a renewed sense of empowerment. With this knowledge, he crafted a thoughtful response to the cease and desist letter, outlining his legal rights and the rationale behind his decision to install the cameras. He emphasized that the cameras were not only a security measure, but also a necessary step to ensure his family's safety in light of the ongoing harassment. This experience underscored the significance of homeowners' rights in the face of HOA regulations. Michael realized that many residents might feel intimidated by their associations, often choosing to comply rather than stand up for themselves. He became determined to advocate not only for his own rights, but also for those of his neighbors who might be facing similar challenges. By taking a stand, Michael hoped to inspire others to assert their rights and foster a community where homeowners could feel secure and respected, free from undue intimidation and harassment. As the conflict between Michael and the HOA escalated, he found himself facing an accumulation of fines that seemed to multiply with each passing week. The board, emboldened by Diane's leadership, began issuing notices for fabricated violations that had little basis in reality. For instance, they claimed that his security cameras were improperly positioned, despite their strategic placement for safety. Each fine felt like a personal attack, a reminder of the HOA's relentless pursuit to undermine his efforts to protect his home. The board's decision to uphold these fines was made during a vote that Michael was not allowed to attend, further deepening his sense of isolation and frustration. The emotional toll on Michael was significant. He felt overwhelmed by the mounting financial burden and the constant stress of dealing with the HOA's tactics. The fines, which began as minor inconveniences, quickly escalated into a substantial amount that threatened his financial stability. Each notice brought a wave of anxiety, making it difficult for him to focus on his renovations or enjoy his new home. The situation weighed heavily on his mental health, as he grappled with feelings of helplessness and frustration. However, amidst the turmoil, a glimmer of hope emerged in the form of community support. As word of Michael's struggles spread, several neighbors began to rally around him, expressing their solidarity and sharing their own experiences with the HOA. They organized meetings to discuss the board's tactics and brainstorm ways to address the issues collectively. This newfound sense of community empowered Michael, reminding him that he was not alone in his fight. The support he received from his neighbors not only bolstered his spirits, but also ignited a determination to stand up against the HOA's unjust practices. Together, they began to explore avenues for reform, aiming to create a more equitable environment for all homeowners in Oak Estates. In the face of mounting challenges with the HOA, Michael devised a comprehensive strategy to document all interactions with the association. Understanding the importance of documentation in legal disputes, he began meticulously recording every communication, whether it was a formal notice, an email, or a phone call. This approach not only provided him with a clear timeline of events, but also served as crucial evidence should he need to defend himself against the HOA's increasingly aggressive tactics. Michael recognized that having a well-documented account of his experiences would strengthen his position and help clarify the facts in any potential legal proceedings. As he embarked on this documentation journey, Michael found invaluable support from his neighbors and community members. Many of them had faced similar issues with the HOA and were eager to share their own experiences. They encouraged him to keep detailed records and even offered to assist in gathering evidence, such as photographs of his property and testimonies about the HOA's behavior. This collective effort fostered a sense of camaraderie among the residents, reinforcing the idea that they were all in this together. The solidarity from his neighbors not only bolstered Michael's resolve, but also provided him with a network of support that made the daunting task of confronting the HOA feel more manageable. Fueled by this community backing, Michael became increasingly determined to stand up against Diane and the board's unjust practices. He understood that the fight was not just about his own home, but also about the rights of all homeowners in Oak Estates. With each documented interaction, he felt more empowered to challenge the HOA's authority and advocate for a fairer approach to community governance. Michael's strategy to document everything was not merely a defensive measure. It was a proactive step towards reclaiming his rights and fostering a more just environment for everyone in the neighborhood. One fateful evening, Michael experienced a shocking event that would forever alter his perception of safety in Oak Estates. As he reviewed footage from his security cameras, he was horrified to witness a figure lurking around his property. The footage revealed someone attempting to set fire to his front porch, flames flickering dangerously close to the house. Michael's heart raced as he realized the gravity of the situation. This was not just an act of vandalism, but a deliberate attempt at arson. The urgency of the moment propelled him into action. He immediately called 911, his voice trembling as he reported the incident, emphasizing the potential for a devastating fire that could endanger not only his home but also the lives of his neighbors. Within minutes, police arrived on the scene, assessing the situation and gathering evidence. Michael felt a mix of fear and anger as he recounted the events leading up to this moment, sharing his ongoing conflict with the HOA and the hostility he had faced from Diane. The officers took his concerns seriously, recognizing the potential link between the HOA's aggressive tactics and the attempted arson. As they began their investigation, Michael felt a glimmer of hope that justice might be served. In the days that followed, the police uncovered compelling evidence against Diane. Witnesses came forward, corroborating Michael's claims about the HOA's intimidation tactics and expressing their suspicions about Diane's involvement in the incident. The security footage, which clearly showed the figure's face, further solidified the case against her. This shocking turn of events not only heightened the stakes for Michael, but also galvanized the community, uniting residents in their determination to confront the HOA's oppressive practices. As the investigation unfolded, Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that he was not just fighting for his home, but also for the safety and integrity of his entire neighborhood. In the aftermath of the attempted arson on Michael's home, the police launched a thorough investigation that quickly led to Diane's arrest. The response from law enforcement was swift and decisive, as they recognized the severity of the situation and the potential threat Diane posed to the community. When the officers arrived at her home to make the arrest, Diane's demeanor was strikingly calm, almost defiant. She maintained an air of composure, but Michael could see the flicker of anxiety in her eyes as the officers read her rights. It was a stark contrast to the chaos she had caused, and her nonchalance only fueled the community's outrage. Diane faced serious charges, including attempted arson, conspiracy to commit arson, and intimidation. The gravity of these accusations sent shockwaves through Oak Estates, as residents grappled with the reality that someone in a position of authority could resort to such extreme measures. The news spread quickly, igniting conversations among neighbors who had previously felt isolated in their struggles against the HOA. Many expressed disbelief that the very person responsible for enforcing community standards could be implicated in such a heinous act. The community's reaction was one of solidarity and support for Michael. Residents who had once felt intimidated by the HOA began to rally around him, sharing their own experiences and voicing their concerns about the board's practices. Town hall meetings were organized to discuss the future of the HOA and the need for reform, as residents sought to reclaim their community from the oppressive tactics that had plagued them for so long. Michael felt a profound sense of relief and empowerment, knowing that the truth had come to light and that he was no longer alone in his fight. The incident served as a catalyst for change, uniting the community in their determination to create a safer, more equitable environment for all homeowners in Oak Estates.